The thing that we focus on always is the owner, but there's a byproduct, and it's the employees. If we can help take care of the employees, it actually turns around and helps the owner. We get these 401k profit share plans implemented in the practice, and you get a good deduction by the money you defer into there. And then if you do the profit share, the company gets a deduction. And it adds money into the accounts of the employees too. So now these employees are more invested because they have a grander retirement plan.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Raving Patients Podcast. First off, I want to thank the sponsors, both Dental Intelligence and the Doc Sites, for their support, allowing me to come to your inbox every single Friday morning at 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time when the episode is released. I also want to mention to everyone we just completed Supercharge Your Dental Practice 2024 in Scottsdale, Arizona. It was a huge success. Great feedback from the attendees and sponsors that were there. 2025 will be September 26th and 27th. In Fort Lauderdale, Florida at the Pier 66 Resort, as I said, in Fort Lauderdale, September 26th and 27th. So mark your calendar now so you don't forget that date. One of my vendors at the meeting was this gentleman I have on the podcast today. My guest is Kelly Richards from Allworth Financial. Kelly is a partner advisor in their Phoenix, Arizona office. He studied business management at Snow College in Utah before embarking on a career in the financial sector in 2005. He's a cancer survivor and active volunteer in the Phoenix community. So please welcome to the Raving Patients Podcast, Kelly Richards. Kelly, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Len. I really appreciate you bringing me on.
I'm excited to have you. So Kelly and I met actually only a little over a month ago. We met at Dental Intel's in Telecon. I was a speaker there. Kelly was a vendor there. I was introduced by a mutual friend of ours, Craig McVeigh from Mountain Sign Dental. And we hit it off. I invited him on the podcast, and lo and behold, now we're doing a podcast, but he was also one of my late arrivals at the Supercharge meeting. He was a vendor. He's already signed up for 2025. Kelly, just so before we get into the podcast stuff, can you just share with people, because I don't think I've ever done this on my own podcast. Can you share with people your experience briefly at Supercharge, kind of the experience from what you would have seen as an attendee, but also as a vendor?
Well, first of all, the hotel was beautiful. It was amazing and very welcoming, and the staff was great there. But walking in and getting set up, it was so organized, and I was super stressed coming in because I didn't know what to expect, because I've been to some pretty bad conferences. And to come in and the table's set up and the names on the table, lanyards, my box is there, and to be able to get that set up the night before was a big stress relief. But the whole weekend was fantastic. The presenters were great. A lot of really neat vendors in there, made a lot of great contacts with the vendors, and the dentists that were there and their office staff were spectacular, which is one of the reasons why we like working with dentists, is because they generally are, well, almost always are very kind. So it was just a pleasant atmosphere, and it was neat to see the variety of booths. It was great. We made friends. We have new friends from this convention. So it was fantastic. And, I would say one of my favorites, a lot of the speakers, everybody there was great. I loved, Dan, what is his name? Dan McNabb.
Dan McNabb from Legally Mine. Yeah.
Legally Mine. Because that's right up my alley, with what he was showing. And, that was spectacular. It was a definite value add weekend for me, and I can't say that about very many conferences I've been to, and I'm being genuine.
Well, I appreciate that. I knew that you enjoyed it because you're coming back, but I figured I would take a moment of two and just talk about that for people who are listening. That if you are a dentist or a team member and you want to grow your practice, look at coming to Supercharge Your Dental Practice in 2025 in Fort Lauderdale. Details once we get all the speakers will be released probably sometime towards the end of the year, and then full-fledged sales started in January basically. So, but I want to move on. I don't want to belabor the point there, but thank you for that. I appreciate it. So, Kelly, can you kind of just take a moment or two, just introduce yourself? I read your bio, very brief, thank you. But kind of what you do and how you help dental practices or dentists.
Yeah. So I got involved in the financial industry back in 2005, started at Chase Bank, and then from there started at a company in 2010 called RG Capital. And by 2012, I was running the book of business. But what was really interesting in joining this firm is it was a dental specific firm. And so that was our target audience. And one of the biggest reasons is, a lot of dentists, when they would come on board, were big spenders, and we would bring them in and we'd run these retirement plan proposals and get them set up. And we took these big spenders to big savers, and it's been fun. So I love working with dentists, and that was in 2012. By 2017, I bought the company in 2017. And then I owned the company from 2017 to 2021. And I needed to find a company that could provide a great continuity plan if something ever were to happen to me. And I had cancer, so mortality is ever present in my head, and I would always worry about that. And I interviewed 10 companies out there, and one was Allworth to partner with. And I'll never forget flying up to Sacramento. There was Scott and Pat. They were the co-CEOs at the time, and I met with Pat. And I remember he walked in the room and he said, "I'm not going to pay you what you're asking for your company." He said, and I thought, oh. And he goes, "Well, you've actually undervalued it." He goes, "I'm going to pay you more." And when I saw the integrity, that meant that all the other 9 that I met with knew I undervalued it, but not one of them was saying anything. And that's what really tapped me into Allworth, is the integrity. And so now I'm what's called a partner advisor. I am part owner of Allworth, and I'm still dental specific. All my clients are still my clients when I own my company. And now with me coming to Allworth, we built out a dental specific side of the house, and we have a team of 5 other, five other advisors that partner up with me in taking care of our dentists.
That's awesome. That's great. So let's jump into some of the content here. So first off, let's talk about 401 profit sharing plans and the low cost platform that you have at your company.
Yeah, absolutely. So 401k profit share plans, the profit share component usually comes along with the 401k. They're key in a dental practice. And, the thing that we focus on always is the owner, but there's a byproduct, and it's the employees. And if we can help take care of the employees, it actually turns around and helps the owner. And so we get these 401k profit share plans implemented in the practice, and you get, a good deduction by the money you defer into there. And then if you do the profit share, the company gets a deduction, which is fantastic. And it adds money into the accounts of the employees too. So now these employees are more invested because they have a grander retirement plan. It was interesting in years ago working with the 401ks, I really was deep diving into the platform that we were using. And it was one that I inherited when I bought RG Capital before joining Allworth. It was with another company out there, and it was really expensive, really, really expensive. And I couldn't believe some of the fees that these folks were paying to be on that 401k platform. And so I thought, I've got to figure this out. I put a meeting up with that company. I said, come meet me in my boardroom. They sat down and I said, your fees are excessive. And the guy that represented the company said, well, we'll reduce the fees. And I go, by how much? And he goes, 0.05%. And I looked at him and I said, you're fired. That's not enough. I said, you're fired. We're done using you. And I think at that time we had some like $45 million worth of plans on the platform. And so I went on a journey looking for a better platform. And there were some key things that it needed. I needed somebody that didn't do third-party revenue sharing with a record keeper or a third-party administrator, because that takes away from the employees and the owner of the business. I needed a platform where we could use exchange-traded funds in lieu of mutual funds. And there were very, very few of those available. And then I needed the expenses really, really driven down. And so that's what I was seeking for. And it was really, really hard. But I came across Tony Robbins partnered up with this other gentleman. I forget his name here and I think he was in Scottsdale at the time, and he wrote this book about it too, and very intriguing, but they created this 401k platform that was very inexpensive, didn't do revenue sharing, and use exchange traded funds. And I saw the CEO on Fox Business, and so I emailed him and I said, hey, you tell me how you're doing this. I would love to, or can I partner up with you or use your platform? And as I would expect, he said no. And that's fine. And I can understand that. But he said, I'd like to buy you. And I said, I'm actually not interested in selling at the time. Great, nice guy, but that was it. So I was kind of bummed I couldn't get into that. And I happened to have a meeting with a record keeper. So the record keeper keeps track of all your investments and all the money you've got into your 401k. And they're required with that. And I met with this record keeper and I told him what I was looking for. And he said, well, I know somebody to refer you to, but the person that referred you to me, I don't want to tick him off. And I said, I've got $45+ million to bring over to your platform if you introduce me to this guy. And he said, all right, it's a gentleman over at a company called Matrix. And so he lined me up with a phone call with them, and I told them what I needed. And he said, we can do all of that for you. Actually, that's the same thing we do for America's Best 401k. So I was like, yes. And we found it and we shipped it him over. And I'm going to estimate here, but I think it saved something like $9,000 or $10,000 per $1 million on the old platform to the new one. And so we have created a very economical, very affordable platform. And we operate as 338. So I build the whole core fund lineup, all the investment choices that they're in. And I meet with all the employees of the doctors and get them invested. Do education meetings with them and teach them about compounding interest. And then with the doctors, it's where we really get them to start saving into the plan. And so that's been key to this whole business.
So one of the things I hear a lot about and I'm curious your thought process on it, is cash balance plans. So can you talk a little bit about that? Because that's a common thing we hear as dentists for their retirement.
They are one of the greatest ways to hyper accelerate your retirement funds. It's just they're spectacular. Now, not everybody can do them, and that's why we run a retirement plan proposal. We have a third-party administrator here. It's MGKS here. We have them run a proposal, and what we're looking for is good ratios on the cash balance plan. And what I mean by that, so 70% is the lowest we'll go on the ratio, unless the CPA tells us otherwise, 70%. And what I mean by that is, would you rather give the federal government, 30-40% in taxes on that money, or would you rather give your employees the 30% and put the rest of the money away for you? And so that means that 70% of the money that goes into the cash balance plan is theirs, right? So the higher that ratio goes, the better it is. When you're a younger dentist, oftentimes it's hard to do a cash balance plan because you're young and all your staff is young. And when you run these censuses and you turn them in, a few of the key things that are looked at are the age of the employee, how much they make, and are they full-time is the term we use, which is 20 hours a week or more. It's full-time. If you have a young doc and the staff's about their same age, usually the numbers come back real bad, below 70%. If you are a 1099, it's fantastic. You get 100%. If you own your own company, you do it, you get 100%. But they're phenomenal. I have an oral surgeon that we put one on, I think it was around 2014, and we started him in the cash balance plan. And we just had to close it down. August, I think everything was final, because he had fully maxed it out, and we closed it out, and he and his wife got $4.5 million about of that plan. And so it's tremendous. I mean, where like in a 401k, you can do, 23,000 if you're under 50, 30,000 if you're over 50. You might have a profit share component, but when you add in that cash balance plan, I've seen $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 a year additional that you can throw in, remove from your income from the business, and move it over into that cash balance plan. Get that tax deduction. All expenses around that the TPA, third party administrator fees are deductible. It's just tremendous. And it has made many a millionaire for my dentists.
That's great. That's great. I've heard that multiple times. So I was curious your thoughts on that. So let's also talk about mutual funds versus exchange traded funds, because I know there's a difference between those.
Yeah. So, and I'll try to keep it more simple. They're basically wrappers. Both of them are wrappers. And the purpose is you have a wrapper and then you have a bunch of investments inside that wrapper. And both mutual funds and ETFs effectively are that. So you're highly, highly diversified. And that's why people use them, so that if you're, instead of being in one company that goes, belly up and toast your portfolio, you're in many. So if you lose one, it might hurt a little bit, but not tremendously, because you're diversified. Why I prefer many of your financial advisors, and it's more and more are doing this, it's more common to do the ETFs over mutual funds, is because with a mutual fund, let's just say, for example, on a mutual fund in a taxable account, non-IRA account, you buy $10,000 into it at the very beginning of the year, January 1. Say you hit July 1 and the value has dropped 50%. So you've lost half your 10,000. You're now down to 5,000 and you're like, I can't handle this. And these are for the people that time the market, but I can't handle this. And they sell out, and they just realized, on that selling of or it's actually called redeeming. It's a $5,000 loss, right? But the problem is, while you owned that mutual fund from January to July, there's a fund manager that could potentially be doing trades, buys and sells. And as that fund manager is doing those buys and sells, it can actually end up costing you money at the end of the year. You actually have to participate in those taxes. And so you could have lost all that money, but now you also have to pay tax in it. So it's incredibly inefficient. And the way we look at any fee is it creates headwind up against your savings. And so that's something that I really didn't like. Another thing I don't like about mutual funds is the fact that they don't trade like a stock. If you have a stock and you buy it, you know what you bought it for. If you have a mutual fund and you buy it, you don't. Exchange traded funds act like stocks. You buy an ETF, you know what you got it for. You sell it, you know exactly what you got right when you did it. If you redeem a mutual fund, you have to wait till end of day, markets close. Then they have what's called NAV, net asset value, and they calculate it and they tell you your return. And so if you're one of these folks that, let's go back to March of 2023 when Silicon Valley Bank failed and people started to freak out and pull their money out of the markets, they're thinking they're getting their mutual fund out while things are dropping. But in reality, the whole day had a continuous, everybody continued to pull their money out of their mutual fund. And then at the end of the day, then you really find what you got. You didn't actually get out, where you thought you did. Whereas an ETF and stocks, as soon as you do the trade, you know what you got.
Got it. No, that makes a whole lot of sense. I know everybody talks about the number they need to save in order to be able to get to retirement when they want to. People always ask me, I retired from dentistry, but I also had additional income coming from another career. It's not like I retired from life and I stopped working. So my number was a little bit different because I knew I was going to be able to make up the income somewhere else. But when you have a dental practice owner who's just doing dentistry and I made a decision. I didn't want to work till I was 80 years old. I met dentists who were 80 and they were miserable still having to practice. So can you talk about the number, how they figure that out, or do they know what the number is to save so they can retire at a decent age?
Yeah, absolutely. It's if I went into a room of 100 docs and asked everyone in there, hey, do you know how much you need to save monthly in order to achieve the financial results you're looking for, your desired outcome? A few will raise their hand, which are lying. A few will raise their hand because they're already got a big chunk saved up and they already know they're fine. But the majority of the people have absolutely no idea what they need to save every single month in order to achieve their desired outcome. Easy, I would say 9 out of 10 people don't know. And so that's where you meet with us. We don't charge here to do financial plans, and we figure this out. So we have some great software we use, and we figure this out, input all the data, work up all the scenarios, and it's wonderful. It comes back. And Some are wonderful. They come back and say, you've achieved it. You do not need to save anything more. But most will say, in order for you to retire, what you need to do is save, $2,000, $2,500, whatever it is per month going forward, stepping up with inflation to achieve that outcome. And I run them conservatively, on it. Try to always stick on the conservative side, but on my clients, I'll run them periodically. We might run one and maybe a few years later, I'll rerun them just to see how we're pacing, but it gives them their retirement number and to know mentally. A lot of these platforms out there will give you a lump sum. They'll say, hey, you need $3 or $4 or $5 million to retire based upon what you said. And it shuts down the dentist because how in the world are you going to save $3 or $4 or $5 million? You have no idea, no process. And so that's why we want to know that number. And once we know the number, if they easily can do it, then that's where I come back and say, let's now focus on getting debt paid down so that we can attack this at both ends.
Interesting. And then let's talk last about timing the market, because I think you have an interesting spin on that.
Yeah. You can't time the market. I've had probably in the last month, I probably had 4 people sit before me at my desk and talk to me about trying to time the market and timing the market. In short, the answer is nobody can time the market. No one should time the market. This is why you hire financial advisors to help remove that emotional aspect that we all carry in seeing crazy things in the world like we're seeing now and feeling like you need to sell out. So you hire an advisor to help you with that, but you can't time the market. And I'll give you this stat I just pulled up here. So missing just 10 of the best days would have resulted in more than $3 million of lost earnings based on $1 million invested in the S&P 20 years ago. So if you take that $1 million and you invested it 20 years ago, 1 million would be at $6,364,514 now. And this is saying the S&P 500. If you missed the 10 best days, then you would have had $2,916,236. If you missed the 20 best days, you would have had $1,749,786. If you missed the 30 best days, you would have $1,148,651. Let's say you missed the 50 best days, you would have $566,591 from the million you invested. So this talks about, and this shows to why you don't time the market. The best thing you can do is to look at your statements quarterly, if not annually. There was a study back in 2018 that talked about the people that have more money in retirement. It was the ones that weren't emotional and only looked at their statements quarterly or annually because that helps to remove emotions. Also, the advisors should be helping to remove those emotions.
Got it. So I want to ask you, is there anything else that you wanted to make sure we covered? I know we covered a bunch of stuff on our list, including the unexpected question about Supercharge. But is there anything else that you wanted to discuss or make sure the listeners and the viewers know?
There is one other thing. When dentists are out seeking a financial advisor, make sure, and this is really sad that we have to say this, but you want to make sure they're fiduciaries, that they put the dentist first before their needs. We're fee-based, so we're fiduciaries. We are not commission-based. I will never do a commission-based product. It drives bad behavior. It's not something that you'll ever see me participate in, but anybody ever, because there's a lot of good financial advisors out there and they're fiduciaries. But just ask the question, if people are fiduciaries when seeking out, you want to make sure that they have your interests first. We get blessed secondarily, right? If we're fee-based and they do very well, we do well. And if the markets are going down, we come in to play triage and try to protect their assets, and it also protects our assets. So it's a good business relationship.
I think that's great. I was going to ask you that myself, but I figured you'd bring that up, and that's really good. You definitely want to have that behind you. So, all right. For those that have not listened to a podcast episode before, I switched to a lightning round Q&A. Kelly, just to reiterate the rules, I'm going to ask you business related questions. I want you to answer them. We're going to get through 8 of 10 of them. I want you to answer them fairly quickly. So no long drawn out answers. Less is more here. First question. What has been your most satisfying moment in business?
The day I bought my company.
Okay. How do you build a successful client base?
It's really integrity. It's honesty. And that's what's helped me be successful.
If you remember at the beginning of Supercharge, I talked about how you define success. And the question happens to be, how do you define success?
When my clients become friends.
Got it. What kind of shower ideas do you get? So when you're in the shower, what type of ideas do you get in the shower?
What I get in the shower is, oh crap, I didn't answer that email. Oh, I need to send myself an email about this. The ideas I get in the shower usually revolve around me being too busy and missing stuff and catching it. The shower, for whatever reason, is where I catch my missed items.
What book do you want to go back and reread as it's made a great impact on you the first time you read it?
The Bible.
Got it. How did you build your team that works for you?
I built my team by way of using marketing here at Allworth, my now team, and my old team, and Patty Gale. She's my right hand and my left hand. And she and I have been working together since October of 2010. And so when I partnered with Allworth, I brought her with me. But it's treating them right. It's paying my team correctly for what they're worth. And it's love and friendship.
That's great. Do you have a system in place to keep you organized?
I do have a system in place. I'm not 100%. One of my systems is Patty Gale. She helps keep me straight. I'm actually not allowed to touch the calendar because she said I screw it up. So she's one of my systems in place. And I have checklists built into my emails. And so that's how I keep that done, keep my trading straight, keep my emails straight, to prevent missing things.
Got it. Do you make a to-do list every day, weekly, or when?
My to-do list is every single day. It's an open list because it changes really quick, rapidly. But I start the prep of the to-do list the night before as I prepare.
Got it. If you were to do your venture again, what would you do differently?
Learned more about marketing.
Good answer. Who has been your greatest inspiration?
That would be my father.
Okay. Have you ever turned down a client?
Yes, many times.
So you know how to say no.
I have lost millions of dollars in management when the marriages do not work. I will not do that. I'm too old for that.
Got it. Do you listen to podcasts? And if you do, what is your favorite business podcast?
I don't really listen to business. Mine are more like Joe Rogan. It's my release after working all day. I usually don't want to do a whole lot of business. There's this gal I watch on, and she has podcasts too for acquiring businesses. And that's always an interesting.
Got it. 2 last questions. Who do you look to for advice or mentorship?
Advice is my wife. Mentorship is a great guy I work with over at Allworth. His name's Adam Peters.
Got it. Last question, and it could be either business or personal. Okay. What is one subscription that you cannot live without? So something you pay for on a monthly basis, annual basis that you cannot live without. It could be business or personal.
Maybe National Geographic.
Okay. That works. So Kelly, thank you for partaking in that. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed that little shift on how we ask the questions.
That's cool.
If anybody wants information about you, how they can find out more about what you can do for them, I think you had something you wanted to offer as well. Can you go over those things?
Yeah. So, again, my name's Kelly, Kelly, Richards, RICHARDS. And my email is kelly.richards@allworthfinancial.com. And my phone number is 480-612-6430. And what I really want to do, we help dentists all the time. We're really good at what we do. But I'd really love to run a retirement plan proposal, mutual plan, get your number, compare costs on your current 401k if you have one. We just really want to right the ship. I can't tell you how many people I pull in that we have to fix.
Got it. And what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Best way probably would be email. Kelly, KELLY .Richards, RICHARDS @Allworth Financial, ALLWORTHFINANCIAL.com.
Kelly.Richards @allworthfinancial.com.
Correct.
Kelly, thank you so much for joining me today. Guys, if you like the episode, please recommend it to your friends. If you think of something that you want to, please reach out to Kelly for some assistance with your financial planning. Like us, review us, do everything you can to help promote the podcast. I truly appreciate it. I want to thank the sponsors, both the Doc Sites and Dental Intelligence, for basically supporting this, allowing me to come to your inbox every single week with a new episode. We're almost through with season 7. It's crazy. We're almost into season 8. We've been doing this a long, long time. And as I end every podcast, I want you to remember that your reputation matters. Until the next episode, Kelly, thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll talk to everyone soon.
Thanks, Len.